Right, good afternoon and welcome to the Scrutiny meeting for people. I'm Councillor William J. Rowley, and this is a little bit of homework. It says good morning here, but it's good evening, and welcome everybody to this festive meeting. This Scrutiny committee is being live streamed on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside Council standing orders, and the Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translations of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the council. Thank you. Good afternoon. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. It's a lovely time of the year, this, isn't it? Okay, apologies for absence.
Yes, Jim, we've got apologies from Councillors Davis, Townsend, Pym, Harvey and Jenkins. Okay.
Declarations of interest. Anybody online? If you have it, just shout out. I don't have any either. So we're going to go straight into the service area major report for educational services. We were looking at this report. We are pleased with the report, and what I want to do today is maybe something slightly different, and that's to have a conversation with you guys. Just a conversation, so we can learn what's going on behind. Other members will come in and have their ideas and conversations with you. They'll give you a chance to explain better than just do the normal way on this report this time. But it is a good report. We'll start on that basis. Would you like to take us through your introduction?
Chair, I'm going to pass off to the Cabinet Member to do it.
Lovely, thank you. Cabinet Member.
Thank you so much, Councillor Atkin. Thank you so much for inviting us here today to present the outcomes which have been outlined in the mid-year plan. Our 5 key objectives continue to align with Newport City Council's corporate plan, and overall it contains 21 actions, of which 18 are rated green and on track, whilst 2 have actually been completed. 1 action is rated amber, and this is due to Welsh Government data not being verified when secondary school professional discussions were undertaken earlier this year, and this is in relation to key stage 4 outcomes. And for clarity, that's the exams. I've been assured that now this data is fully available, schools will be revisited, especially to discuss these with a specific focus on the outcomes for those children who are in receipt of free school meals and PGG spend. Key priorities remain in place, and one of these is attendance. Attendance matters. It matters for all of us. Persistent absenteeism can potentially put a child at risk, not just in relation to safeguarding, but at risk of coercion into criminal activities or other calling concerns that don't bear thinking about. The safest place for a child is in school, and it's more than relief when teaching staff see your children arrive safely in school when you've been tracking their attendance for days. We're proud of what our schools do to reduce the gap and ensure learning opportunities available for all. Children not in school will not learn, will miss out on these opportunities, and they will be set up for a future of failure. Hence, the work undertaken to monitor attendance, working with parents, and utilize every available strategy. And I'm committed to working with education services and schools in supporting the current procedures, which are robust. The Education Welfare Service provides a tiered model support, universal, targeted and intensive, based on individual school needs. We're grateful for additional Welsh Government funding. The service operated with the service operated without a waiting list throughout the academic year of 24 to 25, thereby supporting children back into school. Recent All Wales data for the first half of this current academic term shows Newport ranked 2nd in Wales. This is an exceptionally strong performance that we are determined to sustain. I accept that procedures in operation in Newport are more robust than those required nationally by the Welsh Government, reflecting our aim to intervene early with family support and reduce the likelihood of pupils becoming persistently absent. Because I said it again, every child matters, and I believe as governors in our local schools, we all have a duty to scrutinise and question attendance figures. A further priority that we focus on is the need for specialist school places. We see this in both our local and national data. This is also one of the important messages we've heard from school leaders when the leader and I have visited schools this year. This year we opened our first Welsh medium primary LRB within the city. This is situated in Ysgol Gymraeg Nantgwentney, which is in the heart of the Bilbentney community. This provides a 10 spacious unit for primary age children from across the city. In addition, we have successfully expanded our ASD provision for the opening of a 40-place satellite provision in the former Lodge Hill Infant School in Caerleon. This satellite model allows the superb leadership and expertise of the original Ysgol Glyndŵr school to be shared in a new community setting. Ysgol Glyndŵr is one of the strongest specialist schools in Wales, and we're enormously proud of this fact. Despite growing these two new provisions, there remains a demand for places. This is why I'm especially pleased to announce the investments of 2 new primary LRBs, which open in spring 2026. These will be based at Tredegar Primary School and Mays Glass Primary School. In recent years, Llanwern High School established a 20-place ASD unit for secondary age pupils. I'm also very pleased to announce this will expand by a further 10 places in spring 2026. In addition, the Bridge Achievement Unit, which acts as our educational and school setting, will also receive a significant investment to broaden its excellent provision. The Bridge Achievement Centre offers a wide range of experiences to children and young people unable to access mainstream education, and I remain committed to prioritise the needs of the most vulnerable learners. The Bridge Achievement Centre has been celebrated by Eston for its innovative and best practice, and I'm delighted to support this expansion. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to our excellent specialist staff in learning resource bases, learning support centres, special schools and pupil referral unit who do such an amazing job, as well as our mainstream teachers and teaching assistants who provide such high quality universal ALM support. Their professionalism, care and commitment do not go unnoticed. They are an incredible bunch that I think all of us are enormously proud of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Any questions on what the Cabinet member has said for her introduction to today?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to disclose that I'm Chair of Governors of Tredegar Park Primary School. It's just agreed to have an LRB there if it does arise.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Chair, just also note I'm a governor on the Bridge Achievement Centre. Thank you.
I'm not sure whether they need to do that. Okay. We're going to go on to the objectives and updates action plans here. We're going to go from page 4, which is the bottom. What's it called?
Oh, the report number.
The report number on the bottom, and then we'll go into a general discussion after. Page 4.
Chair, can I go back to page 3, because that's where my question started, which was the risks.
Yeah, you can do, by all means.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll put my camera on. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. So the question I have mainly is in relation to the risks there in the corporate and the service risks. Essentially, as all can see within the public report, there's only one that seems to have had mitigation there that's had a reduction, which is Sustainable Communities for Learning Programmes for the service risk from 4 in quarter 3, and then it goes down to 1 in quarter 4, quarter 1 of next year, quarter 2, etc. Sorry, of 25-26, 25-26 again of quarter 2. I'm just wondering, is there any changes or possible ability to make changes in terms of the risks or appetite there to make any changes to see whether or not any of those other risks can be mitigated further to see a reduction in where they stand currently? Or is it things like resources, funding, just a little bit of context there, because I'm sure obviously it is evaluated profusely, but can you just reassure us that things like that there is adapted and what is actually behind the reasons why they're not seeing reductions? Thank you.
I can reassure you, Councillor Marshall, that updated scores have just been given and they've been revised. So whilst they might look the same, we've got new mitigation plans in place that have been revised with new actions, and actually it is demonstrating the success of the plans in place to mitigate the risk because the score is not going up. What we find ourselves in a position of is that we have new and emerging risks as well as the previous risks. Okay, so I can give you an example. If we were to look at education out of county placements, okay, we know that we can reduce the risk because we've bought some block placements through our local provision funding, which means that those are more cost-effective places, which can offset the probability of young people having to go out of county. However, one of the other risks is that young people that have got a formal diagnosis of ASD and SEBD, social emotional behavioural difficulties, are not allowed and authorised to go into those local provisions. They're not registered for that, and so therefore they would have to go out to county. In turn, those particular places are very expensive, and so therefore the out-of-county costs are due to go up, despite the acquisition of further places, and it's certainly not the numbers of out-of-county places, it's the cost. So over recent years, what you see is there were 150 children out of county in 2018. That's been reduced to 100, but the cost of the out of county place continued to be expensive. So you can see that the plan is working successfully to a level, but there's still demand there.
If I can come back, Chair, just to thank you for that. But one thing I would ask, and I will ask obviously the same as social services side, in future reports, could we ask that maybe that context is added in just to obviously showcase what it is, rather than just having the risk there and showing no changes? Because obviously there is a bit of background information. Would that be possible?
Yeah, Councillor Marshall, I think we do another bits in the report. I think what we'll do in future ones, we'll put a hyperlink into the corporate risk register. That's going to Cabinet next week. Yeah. So further detail in that, but we'll put a hyperlink into this as you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, following on from that, I was going to ask this further down, but now we're on that theme. So you've gone some way to explain the current overspend, which is due to the LNA, and can you go on to transport costs, school finances, cost of pressure, and the demand for the overall A&L service, because we need and the SEN support that we need. So there's a raft of things there where the rate is severe, so we're at 12, and I think the committee needs to extract the deficit figure and to see a firm recovery plan. Yeah. And I think what Councillor Marshall was saying, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that firm recovery plan. You've explained it well.
This is slightly different, Chair. I can explain it.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I can give you some firm assurances around our financial planning and education services. So in the first instance, we look at special school and ALN transport. It is overspent. There was a medium-term cost pressure that was illustrated last year, and actually further funding was given to ALN transport. As you can imagine, this is expensive, and when you look at ALN transport specifically, we're not talking about large buses and vehicles which have got the ability to carry large cohorts of children. We're looking at individual taxis, escorts and drivers, which have a high cost. So each time an ALN child is transported, the costs are generally more expensive, so you see that overspend. What we couldn't anticipate is the lack of availability of vehicles, drivers and escorts, and therefore when you look at procuring, there is limited choice, and of course safety always comes first, and safeguarding of children, and we make sure that is the first thing that is considered. And those charges then, of course, they are far more than anybody could have anticipated with the cost of those private businesses. We have already factored into the MTFP for this year that we've got cost pressures, which would, if they are funded, would mean that we wouldn't have that overspend next year, theoretically. We have good modelling in place for forecasting. This is a good example. When we look at the new NRBs that are going to open, we look at previous trends in education and how many children in a resource base would be funded for ALN transport. So our modelling suggests if you're in a primary resource base, 5 out of those 10 children will require ALN transport. So already we can start to factor in a forecast cost to prevent overspending for next year. If you're looking at a secondary ASD base, which is in our future forecasting, we would be requiring 9 out of 10 pupils to be transported across the city. So while giving you reassurances that we use previous trends to model for the future to prevent overspending. The other thing I think is important to note is while this is a mid-year report, it's not to say that we're going to end up in an overspend position, because as head of service, it's really important that I continue to act frugally to see if I can pull back that overspend and create other savings in the education service area before the end of the financial year. Of course, those decisions would be very safe, but I need to make sure that if at all possible, I don't overspend. And also, when we come to the ALN provision development, and we look at those block places, we've bought 20 extra places in Catch 22 and Sporting Chance, as I've described. When we do our forecasting for the year, we've already forecast for the amount of children we see going into out-of-county places. We might not need those out-of-county places as a result. So therefore, every month we go through the financial year, the forecasting has the ability to get better and better and better. So we could be pulling back from those costs. And after all, when you look at this mid-year report, this was produced for an October position, and now we're in December. So already 2 more months ahead. We're due to have our monitoring on Friday, the heads of service monitoring around our financial position. And during that meeting, I'm looking for other opportunities to save money. Okay, and yes, please.
I suppose just a couple of tips from me. So this is a position, if you look at the monitor on this, the first 2 quarters, this is an improving position. I think just the backup was Sarah said. So there was a situation where it was in quarter 1, Sarah, and Sarah's team done an amazing job with finance in order to manage that down, and that continues on a downward trend in the course of the year. So I think that's really important. In a really, I think you need to take that level of overspend against those budgets in the context of the size of the overall budget within education, because it is the biggest budget, schools and education is the biggest budget in the local so just going back to the risk part of it as well, a risk score of 12 is a pretty medium risk. Our risk matrix goes up to 25. That is, the most serious risk we're facing as an organisation. This is about managing the risks within schools and within education, within the budgets that are available. And in the recent Eston inspection, Sarah's team were praising and highlight within the inspection report about the work that they actually do with schools in order to ensure that they can manage those budgets effectively. Now, that's to say that there's not their pressures or challenges, because there really are. But if you compare education services in New York compared to other local authority areas, it's in a significantly better position than most other local authorities.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. It's referenced the ALN costs. This year, from April 25 to the half year, how many students have been sent out of area, and what is the state of those numbers at the end of the half year, and are we likely to see them reduced by the full year?
I can't give you exact figures, I haven't got those with me, but if I had to estimate, because I do all the sign off of the out-of-county pupils ultimately, so I have to authorise that they're the right places, and I authorise the costs personally as well. I would estimate it at being approximately 6 pupils since the beginning of the financial year up to this point. It's difficult to estimate, but we've got, we've built into our forecast that there are approximately 1 out-of-county child per month would go out. As I say, because we've put something quite transformational into place with a block purchasing of Catch-22 and Sporting Chance, that might not need to happen. It's difficult to estimate exactly. That's what we do in our modelling. Really, out-of-county is a last resort because we want our children to stay locally and to be educated, and for us to be able to do quality assurance checks on a regular basis. We do that out-of-county as well, that goes without saying, but local we feel is best.
So what are we doing to reduce those out-of-county placements, and what have we budgeted for at the end of the year for out-of-county placements?
So what we're doing is we're finding other provisions. So as I said, the other provision is Catch-22 and Sporting Chance. We've just procured those block places. That's what we're doing instead. We're also expanding the Otis provision, which is education other than at school, which is provided by the Bridge Achievement Centre, where they're able to provide high quality support, which is far more cost effective than out-of-county places. However, there is a caveat, because on occasions there is no alternative. And we absolutely have to source and procure the highest quality placement, which is out-of-county. In terms of what was in the budget for out-of-county, I can find that out for you by the end of the meeting. That would have been put into our education service budget at the beginning of the year, and it would have been based on prior trends in order for us to be able to model that effectively. So there is a great sense of intelligence behind it, and our financial team are absolutely superb at working with us to make sure that figures are as accurate as possible. Otherwise, we find ourselves in a position where we're calling on council money which is overestimated, and that's not fair on other service areas. And as I said, so we've made the best use of finding alternative places.
Okay. One further question is, how do you see the finances at the end of the term in regards to break even, underspend or overspend? I don't want figures, just I know what you're hoping.
Having a small overspend, which is very, very small and proportionate to the wider education budget. It's rare for education services to be overspent. Last year it was overspent because of the transport costs, which had been unprecedented. Previous to that, education services hasn't been overspent since before I was Chief Education Officer.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Not overspending.
Okay. Anyone else got any questions on that? Because we'll go back if you haven't. I've just got one just to clear up. You know, you've got your new provisions coming on next year.
Yeah.
Where are we with regards to staffing arrangements? Are we on time? Do we have everything in place? Are we going to be ready to rock and roll come 2026? So we've got
We've got an estimated opening date for summer term 2026.
Yeah.
And one of our colleagues who takes a lead in specialist resource bases is working with individual head teachers on a timeline and doing weekly checks to support those head teachers with the advertising of key staff. But they will also participate in interviews. In the meantime, while those adverts will be out live after Christmas, we are working on the learning environments to make sure they're fit for purpose, buying resources, looking at the pupils who might go into those resource bases to make sure that transition visits are organised and parents are contacted. So I would say that there is a really good level of precise organisation in the background.
So we're working in a timely manner to get there, and that's all I needed to know.
Yes.
But we are on track with that. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for those answers and yourself, Chris. Okay, page 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Cleverly.
Sorry, Chair. I'm going on, I don't know what pages you're on, but I was going by page 11 and...
Okay, well, we're going by the
ones at the bottom of the page, no?
Yes.
You're doing it different.
Should we be
Yes, I suppose.
page 15?
Yeah. Because page 11 and got objective 1 in school improvements.
It's 11, you're going.
Yeah, so that's where we started, Councillor Cleverly.
Yeah.
I think we're on page 15 now, Chair?
Yes.
Moving on.
I wanted to speak about on page 13, which I'm not sure what page that is on. Oh, page 6, that is. On the persistent absence. Just a question I got to the officers. Is it any particular school or area that we should be looking at for this persistent absence? And usually it's the same families all the time when they go to junior school, and then it carries on in high school. Is that correct?
So would I be able to pass this question over to
Yeah,
Becky,
well.
so attendance portfolio holder? Thanks, Becky.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Councillor. So persistent absenteeism, as we know, is now defined by Welsh Government as any pupil whose attendance falls below 90%, whereas previous threshold was 80%. So there is an increased challenge for schools around reducing the numbers of pupils who present with persistent absenteeism. There are a small number of individual schools where persistent absenteeism is above the levels that we might expect, and that's where the tiered approach to support that the Cabinet member described is really effective. So the Education Welfare Service will have a number of schools who are receiving intensive support, and for some of those schools the reasons will be around levels of persistent absenteeism. But it is a small number of schools overall.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, so in Jan's world, we're on page 13. In my world, we're on page 6. So,
Excuse me, Chair, Trevor wants to come in.
Okay, Trevor.
Yeah, it's on very similar thing. I think Councillor Cleverly was trying to get at students that are persistently absent in primary school, and then exactly the same occurs in secondary school. So do we monitor those students that are persistently absent in primary school and follow them through secondary school as well to see if they do exactly the same?
Absolutely, we do, Councillor Watkins, and two of the mechanisms that support us to do that will be the cluster attendance policies that schools adopt. So all schools in a cluster will have the same expectations for families around attendance. So there's a cluster model of support from education welfare officers. So you will often have, almost always, you will have one education welfare officer which will support a primary school and their feeder secondary school. So families are getting that consistent overview and support.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So page 7.
Chair, so just to come off that, if that's okay, to piggyback, just to clarify, is it my understanding that if young people aren't particularly attending school, but they find it difficult, that they can go on to other provisions? Is that an option that they're open to as well, so those discussions can be had? Would it be in that scope as well to understand if it is anything about not wanting to go to school or finding it hard to go to school, anything else like that, there is other provision in play, like the Bridge Achievement and others? Thank you.
That's not a foregone conclusion, Councillor Marshall. So it would depend upon the set of circumstances. So, you know, it has to be something. So a good example is where children and young people require medical tuition, then that would go to EOTIS, education other than at school, or have got a formal diagnosis from a medical professional. That has a clear pathway into an alternative education placement. Where a child or a young person is not attending school, that doesn't give them the automatic rights to go to an alternative placement. So there are policies around such instances.
So just to clarify that, I wasn't saying it's an automatic right. What I was just saying, it's one of those options available to those potentially, if with the discussions, maybe the student may not be liking school, but it would be part of that conversation with the family to see if there's other provision in play that would actually encourage them to attend, to have some type of provision to warm them back into full-time education.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm happy to, thank you.
Yeah,
There's a range of support available for families and pupils where, as you've described, Councillor Marshall, there may be an element of the pupil not enjoying school, not engaging with school. So grant funding is provided to all schools to support them with family engagement officers so that schools are supported to intervene early, where there are early indications that pupils are beginning to disengage perhaps with learning. And there are lots of schools with a range of successful strategies for supporting pupils back into school.
Okay, what might be helpful for committee, and if not for committee, certainly then for me, would be to see a document, a paper, you could do something on what are the alternatives and how could we, how do you reach these alternatives, just so we get a better understanding of what's available.
Chair,
yes, please.
Scrutiny Committee are due to have a report on attendance in the spring term, really soon, so we could incorporate this work into that report, if that would be suitable.
Okay, is that, yeah.
It's due in February, I think, so not too far away,
So,
or March maybe.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
And
yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
I think some of that provision though is very much bespoke to schools.
Absolutely.
And that has to be taken on board as different schools take different approaches to support children back into school. And it depends completely on the cohort and what's happening within those communities.
Absolutely. But just have that broad understanding would be helpful.
Yeah.
For what I'm hearing. Okay. I'm not quite sure where I think I'm going back in time here. Page 7 and 8. Oh, you and 8, Jan?
I believe I'm on the right page. It's about the toileting to ensure that early years settings provide young children with appropriate support for their toiletry. When they fill in the application forms for, I suppose it's the nursery, could there be something about is your child toilet trained or whatever on there for him to tick a box or whatever, or is that being done already?
When you have a standard application form for a local authority to enter nursery or reception, it's based on the admissions code. So actually the local authority wouldn't have scope to make it, to put those things there. But what we do Councillor cleverly is our schools individually communicate with their new cohort of parents that are coming in to talk about expectations, but also special circumstances where parents and families might need support.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not allowed to collect information. You're not allowed to ask parents to provide information that's not pertinent to the application, because there is a...
I see. Okay.
Is your child toilet trained? Parents could think that's why an application has been refused. So we're not, because of the Equalities Act, we're allowed to ask that question.
It's just been on the governors at one of my primary schools. There's just more and more children coming into school that needs their nappy change, which is, well, in my eyes, it's disgusting. Is it a lack of parenting on the parents?
Away from words like disgusting, it didn't mean that. It is, and I accept that because you're a very passionate person, and like me, sometimes
you know what I meant.
I'm with you fully. This is coming from, there's a national report out, I think it came out today, whereby 25% allegedly, I haven't seen the figures, but it's allegedly reported, and it was reported on LBC News this morning. There we are. Got that back. The 25% of all 4-year-olds are coming in untoilet trained, and staff are expected to provide the necessary. And of course, they're not. Staff are not really wanting to do that. Is to feel where those stats came from. I don't know. But I accept that if we can. I mean, you know, can you assure committee, as much as we can, that I believe we do everything we can in schools to try and communicate that they have to be of a certain independent level to attend our schools.
I think there's a variety of factors to consider. One of those, which is there's a difference between those pupils that have toileting issues because of additional learning needs. Correct. Or because of medical problems.
Yes, that's different, isn't it?
It's different.
But it can sometimes take a while in early years to be able to decipher if that is the issue. So I think that we have to be really understand it before we jump to any conclusions. Yes.
Okay.
But there are other ways that we can support families as well, and we have got to be very careful that in order to engage families and children so their attendance is maximised, that we treat everybody with the respect and dignity they deserve. So where we can support and provide pathways for healthcare or health visiting care or whatever that looks like, or give some support and tips to parents so we can talk to children with social stories and provide them with resources. I think that the education workforce will support in that way. Okay, so we, as I said, it's really important to us that families are welcomed and supported and that we are careful to be respectful, but we can also set high expectations and timeframes.
I think there's two different things here. So a child coming into school with ALN needs, and that's a part of that's separate. I think what Jan is, or Councillor Cleverly is trying to get to, is those who are coming into school without ALN needs, and there's a difference there. But that's not saying that.
Chair, it's just the school was struggling to cope with this problem, that's all. You know, and I just thought I ought to mention it.
And you are right, Councillor Cleverly, the schools are struggling. It's important that we are supportive of the education workforce because they can be overwhelmed as well. And that's why we're working with our early years team to be able to provide the right support for parents and looking at what works, what is effective in terms of the support we can provide to prevent this from growing.
I'm just wondering whether we could, I think it depends. Whether we could do something with our forward work programme, whether you could, I mean.
On toilet? I don't think that's appropriate.
The issue also is that you also think about early years and early years provision, and that's where flying starts. And Welsh Government are pushing for universal provision across Wales, and we're seeing more funding coming into Newport. And if you remember when Caroline was talking at the meeting we had recently, and she's talking about expansion of that provision and looking for external providers and looking for that support, so we can actually get that early years provision more closely based to our schools. That will make a massive difference if we actually get that provision in place to support those children, those families who are having difficulties with toilet training prior to starting school. So there's, you've got to look at holistically what we can actually do to support those families, those children prior to starting school.
Would you say that there is an issue with people who do not have assisted learning needs with children coming into schools?
I couldn't verify it because I couldn't.
I don't know.
No.
For me, I don't know.
I don't know the numbers, but I know we can certainly give support where it's needed.
Okay, so we don't. I'm just trying to. Councillor Cleverly, do you have any evidence of what you say?
Only from being on the governors at the primary school that I'm on, and it's been mentioned in more than one meeting in governors that the I think the teaching assistants have to deal with it.
Okay.
So that it could be a training issue for them. I've no idea.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on then now. And we'll see where this goes later. So, okay, so now I don't know what number I'm on. 8. We're going to go to 9. Yes, Councillor Watkins.
What page am I on?
You're on 8.
I'm on page 8.
Yes,
the last paragraph on page 8, the attainment gap between free school meals and non-free school meals, is that being reduced, or is it about the same, or is it expanded at all?
What the mid-year review shows, Councillor Watkins, is the verified data wasn't out at the time of this report. Okay, so it's a job that we've got back to be able to give you precise information as to whether the gap between free school and non-free school meal pupils at Key Stage 4 outcome has indeed reduced. Yes. So we're not in a position to be able to tell you yet.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Raisin. I did have that there, but you've already answered that question for me.
Chair, what I would also say that it is cohort dependent generally. It depends on the proportion of free school meals pupils that year.
Okay. Page 9. And 10. 11. And 12. And 13. And 14. 15. 16.
Yeah, Chair, can I come in on 16, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's just to find clarification in terms of the complaint side. Is that complaints to the department rather than to individual schools for context? And what is the nature of the complaints on there? Likewise, is there any compliments that you would like to highlight as well? Thank you.
So Marshall, I can confirm that this is to the department. I couldn't tell you the breakdown of the nature of the complaints. I could give you some themes as a follow-up action if you required that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Just any more context just behind it to understand what the issues are and how we're resolving it as an authority. Thank you.
What I could tell you, Councillor Marshall, is that any complaints that have been escalated to the Ombudsman have come back and have not been upheld, which demonstrates we're following policy.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Page 17.
Yes, Chair. Page 17 highlights about the develop digital competencies to support and improve effective service delivery. Things like Copilot and things like that there, which obviously is an AI. And I know on the kind of long end of things, asking for a briefing about AI within education. Is it possible to talk about technology and AI within technology, about its opportunities and threats, to have that discussion? I believe through the Cabinet member, I know we were looking at potentially earlier this year, but obviously that hasn't occurred within the meeting, but just something for us as members to better understand what's out there within the educational sphere, where we're looking at as an authority within education, but where we can support it, but just understand as well where our threats are and where the risks are and how we're overcoming them as an authority within the education sphere. Thank you.
This specific objective and action, Councillor Marshall, relates not to schools but to education services and their staff. But I can outline some of the unintended consequences of the use of AI generally come from our parents wishing to express a complaint or a concern, and AI is used, and often it generates information based on English policy, not Welsh policy, which isn't helpful. And often the use of AI is very difficult to decipher in order to be able to help parents with their issues. And so I think that's an unintended consequence and a risk, because we would do our utmost to try and support parents at the earliest stage to help them rather than for complaints to ever escalate. I would imagine that schools, that would be an intended consequence for schools as well, with parental complaints coming through their door. I think whereas perhaps in the early days we might have thought that AI might have been difficult to identify for homework, etc. It is really easy to identify the use of AI. It's not difficult to see when that comes through. So I would say those were perhaps the two risk areas, really.
Thank you for clarity. And just to think, is there an informational piece that we can have in future? Because I know when you said before about the thing of it, I think it's important that we understand. I know we said on a corporate level, but as members, it's something that we're coming into, and just think it's important to understand where we're going as a local authority to make sure that we're getting the full grasp of it, to understand where it's in. But I would also potentially argue about the fact of being able to easily identify AI, because you can actually train the AI to talk as if you talk, so you can train it to identify the way you are. So there's things like that which makes it a lot more complicated for things to be picked up as well.
Okay, well, we've had one explanation, and it is that education is finding it quite would easy be the right word to describe it, to identify people who use AI. It's quite easy, but Rhys is going to come in now to I believe he's still.
Yeah, sorry, thanks, Chair. I suppose a couple of bits from me. I think one is there's an AI policy as the leader is the cabinet member responsible for digital technology. So there's an AI policy come up for consultation with members today, I think. So today, yeah.
Is it today?
Yeah, earlier on, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
So that's about the organisation's use of AI and technology. We're working really closely with partners in SRS around a series of use cases around that. So, at some point, I would assume, in the new year, we'll be looking to amend the seminar on the use of AI. I think anything from an education perspective, I think we just need to be really clear about what we're trying to do, because that is the start of the use of technology and AI in an education setting, start and end. We could spend
I don't know.
We could spend months and months. So I think we just need to be really clear with what we're asking here. It's like asking for us to do bring the Scrutiny piece on educational pedagogy or something like that. It's just. So I think we just need to be mindful of what are we asking for? How much of that's education? How much of that is a corporate response to AI and technology? As a new and emerging technology that is literally changing every day.
It is every day. It's advancing, and we're actually behind the times in real terms with it. There we go. Because it's so far ahead of us. Right, okay. Okay, start right. 17, 18, 19. Councillor Watkins.
It's reference the sickness days lost. Could I have a little bit more explanation on that graph? Is that 5 people or 5 days lost?
That is, what you're looking at is, it describes the average number of days lost in Newport City Council is 5 days. In education services, it's demonstrated as 1.98 days, showing that education services has got a much lower rate of sickness in the service area.
So is that per employee?
Yeah, the Councillor Watkins, so the figure is numbers of days per full-time equivalent employee, 6. So education is really low. But I'd also add in, because I think this came out from the Place and Corporate Scrutiny Committee, that the organisation as a whole is low against the public sector.
So we're doing something right.
Yes, right. Yeah. We had there was as a lot of organisations felt, private and public sector, off the back of COVID, increases in sickness levels. I was recovered and starting to improve again now. So
good.
That's lovely. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cleverly.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, have we got many staff on long-term sick across the schools?
This service area report does not report on school-based staff. A governing body has the delegated responsibility of looking at sickness levels, and that would come through the head teacher's report.
Okay, thank you.
Right, okay. Page 20 and 21. Okay, that ends the midterm report.
Chair, if you help while I run through what I've noted.
Yeah, please.
As our outcomes. So I've got that recommendation about including the hyperlink report risk register with the context on risks. I've got including the information on support and alternatives for children who are persistently absent in that attendance report. The request for more context around the themes of complaints from Councillor Marshall. And aside from that, just that we're pleased with the report, really.
We're pleased with the report, and yeah.
Unless anyone wants to add anything, or I've missed.
Councillor Watkins asked the total end-county budget for the area.
Oh yes, it is.
Councillor Watkins, that is £5,124,000, and the local provision development budget is 1.8 million, and so what we're trying to do is spend less on out of county, more on local provision, and we're allowed to via the money between the two subcomponents of the budget.
That's what I was looking for, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Okay, we've got no. We're going to go. Where are we off to? Where are we now?
We're done, Chair.
We're done. Forward work programme.
Next meeting will be I believe it's I think we did it because we looked at it last week,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure it's the 14th of January.
So it's in January anyway.
Yeah, and
there's a new start time,
yes.
which is 11 o'clock a.m. Yes, yes, yes. So you don't go home when it's light.
I had a feeling you were going to change that, Councillor Rowan.
Good, good, thank you. We all listen sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of this live event. So thank everybody for attending.